Hello and welcome back to the Practical Microservices stream. This is going to be a fun one because we had the meetup last night and that went great. I am like 2 meetups behind posting the recordings of those to the YouTube channel, so I will do that one of these days. Hey, SB Ditto, good to see ya. It's been a while, not because of you, but because of me. Hope things are going well for you. Yeah, just saying how we had the meetup last night, which means that we are back to porting the book from Busy at Work. Yeah, ain't that always the case? Porting the Practical Microservices code over to Eventide. I have not looked at that in over a month. So the fun that we're going to get to have today is me trying to get back into context. So yeah, let's see if past me left any helpful notes, shall we? So here's why it's good to take notes. So the last couple of days I did meetup prep. This isn't the next thing anymore. January 2023. What did we do? Good solid progress on the identity component. Why am I hearing my voice right now? Oh, because I turned these headphones on. Let me turn them off. Okay, they're off. Walk through what the parts are. We made progress. This component is getting interesting because it is a client of a send email component and it has a client in the application layer. So we're seeing a few patterns come together at both ends. Have a great weekend. I got to be honest. I think that, well, yeah, totally. When I wrote all those notes, I wasn't anticipating taking a month off. In large part, it was because I found out the next day that my aunt had died. And so spent a whole lot of time getting her laid to rest and stuff. But so let's see something here. I was in a plane the other day and I was trying to take some notes on what needs to happen for the rest of this. Things to fix. Port it. Here we go. This was I made out a list of everything that needs to happen to complete this whole effort. And great. The note I took there is we're in the middle of doing this right now. So helpful. This is something I'm interested. SB Ditto, you're here. And anyone else who's here. There are a lot of parts of porting the code from the book to Eventide that I don't think are super interesting to have on the stream, because what am I trying to capture on the stream? It's building stuff, building microservices projects, and even in a microservices based architecture, there are some portions of it that feel a lot like traditional MVC stuff, portions of it that don't involve messaging or anything. And one of those that was on my mind was the authentication. We don't have that yet working in our port. In a real world scenario, you probably wouldn't go build your own authentication solution unless your company was literally, say, a competitor to Okta or Auth0. Did one of those acquire the other recently? Doesn't matter. Point is, unless you're entering that as your product space, you probably wouldn't build your own authentication solution. So I was just wondering if, oh, and I spelled table incorrectly. No, I didn't. Well, did I? Yes, I had spelled it incorrectly. Okay. So certainly the porting of the UI from the Pug templates, let me pull that up real quick. So in the book, we go to, say, the authentication app here, templates. We have the login form that's in Pug. We're just using standard ERB in our Rails code. I do not think it has been the most banging content to sit there and watch me convert all of this to HTML. So I think that's kind of an obvious, like, don't do that on the stream. On the flip side, it's really hard to find time off the stream to work on this stuff. So we might just have to bear through it, and then maybe I can cut it down into YouTube videos or something. So I don't know. Just looking for, are there portions of this that you're like, if I didn't watch that on the stream, I wouldn't feel like I was missing out? So anyway, that's the question. Let's come back to the identity component and see if I've got a failing test to work from. That's nice. How is, let's see, I need to change that. There we go. And then is this opera here? It is. Let me make that the right size as well. Okay. So let's see, the identity component. It looks like we haven't yet written an event handler. Why would we have an event handler in this one? Oh, right, because as part of the registration process, we want to send an email. Aha, which is what we're doing. So we're handling the registered event to send an email. I'm assuming that means that if we come and look at test automated commands register. Nope, not that one. Handle commands register. Okay, we have all three of those in place. I'm just going to open one just for my own satisfaction here. Yeah, that looks like a completed test for the command handler. Preconditions, making sure we wrote the message, that it's to the right stream, and then we check the attributes. Okay, great. So it looks like the registered event is written, and now we need to produce the send email command. And that nothing is being written because we don't actually have a handler in place at all. So, great. Let's work on it then. So we need a hand. Oh, look at that. I just completely missed it. Next, fill out the rest of this test. Hey. Okay, so I did leave a little note there to myself. That's lovely. If it has absolutely nothing to do with autonomous components, then perhaps if you do it offline, you review it on the stream, or if you get to a point that it suddenly seems relevant, then you bring it up on the stream. Yeah, I could see that working. And like actually in my notes that I was taking there, at first I was like, oh, authentication has nothing to do with messaging, but in the book, we do write a user logged in event whenever the user logs in, so it's not completely. So I'm going to go with the doing the pug to ERB conversion. I think that's safe content to not include on the stream at all. It's not even, that's just pure tedium. So I will leave that kind of thing off if we can avoid it. If I haven't managed to get to it before, like this is the thing we need now to continue, it'll show up, but I'll do my best to not do that. What are the other kinds of things that would really have nothing to do with autonomous components? I mean, obviously if we're working on a component that has to do with when we're producing view data components are components. Possibly like when we get into the admin interface, there will be a number of screens that just read view data. And so I do definitely want to show some, here's how to build something that reads the view data and displays it. But I think for the purposes of the conversion here, we don't need to see that every time unless there's something novel. So I like that. I'm going to write this down. Otherwise I'll forget. So discussion around what to include on stream. So skip the pug to ERB conversion. Don't need to show every screen that reads view data unless there's something novel in there. And like I said, I'll bring up what we did, and it might be helpful to have a link to commits on the projects as well. So if I'm going to just do something off the screen, it's like, well, if you want to see what changed, you can see this, which of course isn't as good as being present, but who am I kidding? Who's gonna like watch all that stuff? Anyway, okay, so that'll be that. Right, and there's one other thing that I think I'm going to start doing differently now that I'm back in the habit of streaming regularly is what has played out is that the port from the JavaScript code to Eventide has kind of been like the overarching background project. And so when there were, quote, more urgent things to work on, I would do those instead of the port. So like it's been a lot of meetup prep, I think. And we did that special stream about doing a book proposal for Prague, but that didn't replace the ones at noon my time. But I think there's like kind of another overarching thing I want to bring in so that when there aren't urgent things, the rest of the time will be split up between porting the video tutorials code and doing some very specific things with the funds transfer and account component examples from Eventide. Want to do some, okay, cool, we have these two components, but like building an application that could interact with them and the view data aggregation that would be interesting. Like a first pass at this would be building a view data component that would aggregate a list of accounts or something. The official Eventide examples don't have any examples of that. And so that is something that as a community we've perceived a lack of. And so I think we'll start experimenting with how to extend those examples into a more complete system standpoint. And that's something that we might be able from time to time to get Scott Bellware or Nathan Ladd on stream to talk about it as well. And so look for that in the future as well. Obviously that's not starting today. We're going to continue with the port today, but anyway, that's what we want to get to. So now that you've seen all the things that I have in Notion here, let's continue on with getting this port to happen. So we are failing, or the test is not passing because, cool, I'm glad for that reaction. That would be awesome. SB Ditto. Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, so the test is not passing because we are not actually writing a message. We are not writing a message because there is no handler. So let's do some cleanup here. Whoops, I didn't mean to delete that one. We will actually need to include our messages events, and I like to put a white space, and this might be how the actual generator works too. So it's like not me being clever, but I like to have a line of white space between any external gems that I'm pulling in versus portions of my own code there. So that's that formatting decision. Kind of like in Node, I do the same thing where if I'm requiring or importing, I still require. It's 2023 and I still use require because I prefer it to import whatever the prevailing style may be. If I were working on your project, I would conform to the standards of your project. But anyway, this is my project, so I get to do what I want. Whatever, not worth figuring out that train of thought, but it was. So let's see here. We do need a handler, and something happened is not the event. We are handling the registered event, and we would call this reg. Oh my dear goodness, registered. Like so, okay. And so to make this test pass, all we need to do is get something written here. So we can just grab a registered, and I'm going to make one little not doing the simplest code possible, and we're just going to call build directly on here rather than new, because I don't, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to justify it. So let's go ahead and write this registered event to some stream. And you might wonder, follow this flow every time you write a message handler where you end up using the stream some stream. Why still do that? Well, it's because I want to reduce by keeping these increments small. If it doesn't work, then I don't have to like look at 17 different things to figure out what went wrong. I believe that now the assertion should pass. I don't quite remember from the state of the code if, well, we would already have the registered event for sure. Otherwise we couldn't have had the command handler test. So what we did was we, in our events handler, we added a handler block for it. We're getting an event and writing it to some stream. Where could this possibly break down? We didn't add any files, so there won't be a problem with the loader. I think this assertion will pass now. Dang it. Send email client messages, commands, send. What? Oh, interesting. Yes. Okay. Let's read through the error message. What just happened? Here we go. All right. So let's see. Okay, we have an uninitialized constant from the send email client messages command send. So we have the send email component. I don't remember if we made a client for it yet. And it is not available to our test here. We weren't getting this error before because if you don't actually write a message when you when you call the handler here, you won't actually hit the inside of this block. And so it's if it found a message, it will then run this block to see if it matches. And if you haven't written a message, it won't even run it. So we're getting an error on this not existing, which means we need to see if that, what is the state of that component? So what is this? This is the send email component. Let me rename my tmux pane. Send email component. What's in 7 here? Oh, that's I was working with my daughter on a thing. So showing her case statements. Oh my dear goodness. There's my bash file if anyone's interested. And what's in this one? Video publishing component. That is actually relevant to our current efforts. So let's keep that one open. And this would be the video publishing component. Yeah. Okay, so send email component. What is your state? Looks like we do have the client. Nope, that's not that. We do not have the client in place. This send email is that external dependency we made for sending the email where we theoretically had a send grid one. Okay. All right, so we need to add that next. I'm going to make a note of that. So the problem is, I don't know if it's a problem so much as just work that we haven't done yet. We want to make sure that when we handle the registered event for the first time, at least, that our handler, that means that this whole thing here may not be the right constant name for it anyway, but we need to write a send command to the send email component, and we would like to use its definition of that to do so. We could define our own command in here and it would work because at the end of the day, we just need to get a certain row into MessageDB so that send email can pick it up, but we're not going to do it that way. We're going to write a client for this. Now, I did have a conversation once with the Eventide folks, and let's open this. So like an account component in lib, this account directory here rename spaces some things in the account component, these commands here, to make it so that you have a nice interface for sending commands to this component. And one of the things they said that was really interesting to me. Oh, see ya, SB Ditto. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping by. They said that like packaging this as a separate gem isn't just a practice to just blindly follow, but it's like if you were publishing this component in an untrusted environment, meaning that like not untrusted in the sense of like hackers or something, but like if you're within your own team and you have more control over everything that's being developed, then you can make sure that the team practices are in place where if someone pulled in the full account component gem, because remember that it has both. There are 2 gem specs in this project, and one of them is for that client and the other is for the component itself. If you are the one using the gem, you could pull in the entire account component gem and you would have the trust that you would not try to use code from the account component that you're not supposed to. The whole point of this account client gem is to expose only the things that are safe to use across components. So the message definitions and those helper classes, you wouldn't want to use the projection from another component, for example. But if you pulled in the whole account component gem, you might, someone would then have access to the projection and might pull it in. So I want to experiment with this and not go the full separate client route for it. So if that is the case, then we don't actually have something else that we would need to write. We would just need to make sure that the files that we need are actually included in the component gem. So if we came here and opened this one, excuse me, I am looking at this file real quick and haven't updated any of that. Have I been doing that as a matter of course? Check the video publishing component. If I haven't, I don't care that much to do it. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to go through and actually change all of these. Maybe I will, but that is some off-stream work. So I don't see the importance of it for this particular project. And let's get to the correct one. So for this to work, how do we know what? Oh, it looks like it just pulls in everything. Fair enough. Okay, so I think we're good. So if we go to the identity component, then I know for a fact this is incorrect. So it would be more like send email component messages command send, I believe is what we're looking for. So what we would need to do is come to our gem file right here and then say, whoops, gem, and what is its name? Send email component. Sure. Send email component. Did I spell that right? Cool. And then we'll use the, I have such mixed feelings about the colon after the symbol here. Whatever, fine. It's going to be up one directory into send email component, like so. And then we could do posture equals development and install our gems another time. Uh-oh, didn't work. Really? Oh, right, yeah. The path would have dashes. Neat, that ran. We can see using send email component. Why is it using itself? That is interesting to me. Is that what happens in all of them? Let's look at this one real quick. So let's see, such software, practical microservices. We are in the send email component in this folder. We'll get that familiar pause on messaging fixtures. No, yeah, I guess its own one gets pulled in. Okay, I don't understand why that is, but it's not something to be alarmed about. Okay, so now that we have access to this, we would just need to make sure that we are loading this in. So into our component loaders, where I would put it, we would have a require send email component, because that's the name of the gem. And now, in theory, that would have loaded send email component messages commands send into our runtime here. So let's press up a few times to get to our test. Did not work. What happened? Okay, great. Oh yeah, silly me. I completely wrote the wrong thing to write there. Right? We're not writing we're handling a registered by writing a registered. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But the good news is that it does seem that we pulled this in properly. So we know we have access to that message definition, which is what we wanted. what we actually wanted to have here is a send command. Oh yeah, here's the thing. So just because we don't package it as a separate gem doesn't mean we don't want the command helper. Let's just explore it right now. We can add that later in refactor. So we could say send email component messages commands send dot follow registered. Right now, this would say send. Whoops. I thought that would work. I didn't predict it. So what happened? Has no setter for identity ID. Right. When you do a follow, you would need to exclude certain properties here. So, what's the way to do this in Ruby? This is how I would do it in JavaScript. I'd do that and then have a... The problem is that, let's open lib send email component messages commands send has these fields on it, and our lib identity component events, nope, messages events registered has those fields on it. And none of them actually match by name, but 2 is supposed to be this email address. So I think what we can do is only... I don't remember. So let's go have a look at the documentation here. We'll go there, and what we want to do is messages and metadata. Messages, and I believe the follow method is in here. So it would be include or copy, not only. So something like include, and is that supposed to be an array of symbols? Can you rename them as part of this? So what I'd love to do is have something like email maps to 2. Is that allowed? I don't know if that's allowed. We'll see. It is allowed. Okay. I would like to see if that did what I thought it did. So put send.inspect. What we're going to do with that is see if the 2 field on our send command matches the email from. So if we did, let's see, registered.email, and then we did send.to, we should see 2 strings put out that are the same. Okay, that is how it works. Great. Good confirmation. Neat. Now we just need to fill out the rest of this. I think in the book that I used the identity ID as the email ID. Somewhat questionable. So let us find where that would be. Be down in component, send in our identity component. We would have a write send command. And the email ID, I see, we made a UUID v5 out of the email address. Okay. That was used in the registration process. UUID v5s, if you're not familiar with them, v5 UID5 generator. Okay, useful website. So a UUID v4 is randomly generated, and it's super helpful, especially in distributed systems, because you're able to get identifiers that won't clash with other things. UUID being universally unique identifier. The joke I like to make is Microsoft, I don't know if it's the same thing, but they call them GUIDs for globally unique identifier. And so now that we have rovers on Mars, it's really important that we use universally unique identifiers instead of GUIDs. It's a dumb joke. They're the same thing. There might be some slight implementation details that are different, but they're effectively the same thing for us. So V4s are random, and that's useful. V5s are not random. They take a namespace UID and anything that you want to include in it. So like I just use this thing to make a random UID to be our namespace. And now if we put in like hello at example.com as an example, we can generate a UUID that combines this namespace with this text. So we have some piece of data that we want to include in the identifier, but we would like to keep the format of a UUID. That's what's going on here. So every time that we would run this namespace ID and this bit of text here, it's called the name. So this is the namespace and this is the name. We would get the same result. And so why that would be advantageous in our code is that for the same email address, the resulting welcome email would always have the same identifier for it, which would help with idempotency. It gives us a way to generate a stable identifier for the welcome email for a given address. And so you just have to save these namespace UUIDs somewhere, and we can do that because that would have to be here. And look at that. There's the namespace UUID we use for it. This little 2 here is comments. When you write for prog their tooling, there's little ways that you annotate your text so that it can generate and put them into the book. Anyway, so that would have been a point that got called out in the text. So we'll need to copy that UUID over to our oh my goodness, to our Ruby code, to the Eventide code, and then feed that through a UUID v5 process. I'm going to assume I added that now or during this whole porting process and that wasn't in the actual book. And that will give us the ID that we want to use for it. So, all right. Probably not going to finish this before we have to quit today. So let's see. Working on the identity component. About to write the send command. Need to convert email address into UUID v5. That's what we're working on. Okay. First things first, let us grab this bit of text here and bring it over to the identity component. So one thing that came to mind was we're probably going to eventually make one of those client helper classes to send this rather than manually constructing the message ourselves. So should that conversion happen within that helper class, or is that something that we do in the identity component? I think it has to be in the identity component because the sending of the email doesn't care about what the particular use case is that led to sending it. And so that decision to use the email address as the thing that we hash into that identifier, that's a decision that the send email component shouldn't know anything about. So that would mean that wherever we put this, it's going to be in the identity component. And would it just be part of this class or is it something else? Let me just drop it here so that I don't accidentally overwrite the test there. So, okay, I don't like this variable name, UUID-v5 namespace. That's silly. This would be more like the email namespace. So the decision of whether or not to include it in this class or outside it comes down to, does anything else outside this class need to know about this constant? But even if it did, could it not just grab it from here? We will need it in test. How did I do that in the book? I don't remember. So if we come down, oh, right. I put the test files right next to the code in this. Right, registered. Move this over a little bit so I can see. Well, I thought I did that. Our register test. Here we go. Register stream name. Do I have the word send in here? It writes the command to the send registration, to send the registration email. Here's where we would find that. Identity component. Testing in the book was so rough compared to how it works with Eventide. So it was always writing directly to MessageDB as part of all of the tests. And so to be idempotent, I would just write it twice. But where do we check the stream name on there? No, I wouldn't write it twice. I would call the handler twice directly. That's what's going on there. 2 messages written. Oh, I don't check that it's written to the... Oh, here we go. I just checked that they're written to the same stream, not that the stream is correct. Yeah, too many tests in one file here. Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, so back to our identity component. That's our email namespace right there. And I want to pull up the right there. So if we were going to do this, we would need an email ID. Well, we're not there yet. Hold your horses. I also think I did this follow too soon. Right. So let me comment this out and do this in the right order. When I don't, I get lost and things take longer. So we're going to take that line and just build one of these. Test should still pass. Does. Okay, cool. Let's pull these things into existence, and we have a whole 3 minutes left. So we want to make sure test send command written to... is it a send email? I don't remember the category. That's okay, because we have that written down. Over in the send email component, we can go to its consume. No, we go to start. And send email command is the category that we are subscribing to. Consuming from to the send email command category. That doesn't sound right. To a send email command stream. Let's do that. And so then written to stream equals writer dot written. And we would pass it the send, which we define on line 14 there. How do I get a little more space on the screen here? There we go. Send, do, we get the stream name. Oh boy, stream name like so. And now what we want to do is make sure that stream name is equal to send email. Okay. No, it's not a double. It's a single. There we go. And this is where we need to have some email ID that we don't have right now. And then we would say assert written to stream like so. Okay, now when we run this, what would we expect? We should fail because we do not have local variable email ID. Name error on email ID, which is exactly what we wanted to see. So I'm going to come up here, and somewhere up here, we need to know what that email ID would be, because we will need to check its attributes. So next, get the email ID, local variable. Yeah, however that's supposed to be constructed. I'm not sure what that's going to look like. I know it's going to involve feeding the email that we receive through the UUID v5 generation process using this namespace UUID. But that is going to have to be a matter for Monday. I've got to stall out so that we actually get over to the top of the hour. Just kidding. We're just going to call it there. Have a lovely weekend and catch you next time. Until then, happy coding.